The baby screams, not a whimper, not a gentle cry. A full, raw, ear-splitting scream that punches through the first-class cabin of American Airlines Flight 2247 like a fire alarm in a library. Every head turns, every jaw tightens, every pair of eyes drifts slow and uncomfortable toward the same three seats at the front of the cabin. Three men, three massive, broad-shouldered, stone-faced men in suits that cost more than most people's cars, sitting completely, utterly helpless. The baby in Cale Virley's arms does not care that he controls a crypto portfolio worth $400 million. The baby does not care that Ronan Virley's voice has silenced boardrooms in 7 countries. The baby does not care that Zevran Virley once negotiated a merger deal on 4 hours of sleep and walked out with everything he asked for. The baby, 5 months old, wrapped in a soft lavender blanket, face scrunched into the most determined expression any human being has ever worn, simply screams. And screams and screams. Hi viewers, before we go any further, I need to ask you something personal. Have you ever watched someone powerful fall completely apart over something they could not control? Drop your answer in the comments right now, because what happens next on this flight is going to hit different. The flight attendant, a tall woman named Deja Bout with a neat natural updo and gold stud earrings, walks up the aisle for the 3rd time in 20 minutes. Her face is professional. Her eyes are not. There's a very specific look a person gets when they want help but have run completely out of ideas. And Deja is wearing that look right now as she approaches the Virley brothers with a fresh warm bottle and a small white noise machine she pulled from the emergency supply kit in the back. "Can I try the bottle again, sir?" she asks Cale. Cale does not look up. His jaw is locked. His arms are moving in a slow, mechanical rocking motion that looks less like soothing a baby and more like a man manually rebooting a system that keeps crashing. He has been rocking for 41 minutes. His Tom Ford jacket is wrinkled at the elbows. His Rolex catches the cabin light every time his arm moves. Gold, precise, expensive, and completely useless right now. "Tried the bottle," Ronan says from the seat beside him. His voice is quiet, but the edges are fraying. He has one hand pressed flat against the armrest and the other running slowly through his hair. There is a damp spot on the shoulder of his Brooks Brothers shirt where he held Ias earlier, and the baby screamed directly into his neck. "We tried the bottle twice. We tried the pacifier. We tried walking him up and down. We've tried everything." Deja sets the bottle gently on the tray table anyway. She adjusts the white noise machine and presses the ocean wave setting. The soft sound fills the space around them. For exactly 4 seconds, Ias pauses. Everyone in the surrounding seats holds their breath. Then the screaming resumes. Louder, a man 3 rows back in a Patagonia vest mutters something under his breath. The woman beside him puts in her second earbud. A child across the aisle peeks over the top of her seat and stares with wide, solemn eyes at the baby, like she is witnessing something historic. She's not wrong. Zevran, the quietest of the 3, is the only one not holding the baby and not visibly unraveling. He sits in the window seat with his chrome hearts rings stacked on the tray table beside him, his sleeves rolled to the elbows and his eyes moving slowly across the cabin. Watching. Zevran has always been the one who watches. While Cale acts and Ronan feels, Zevran observes, catalogs, files things away until the picture becomes clear. He has been watching the cabin for 10 minutes now. Not the passengers, not the flight attendants, something else. A pull he cannot name yet. A direction the air seems to be tilting toward without explanation. Ias is not just crying. Zevran understands this the way you understand a storm before it breaks, not through logic but through the body. The baby's cry has a shape to it, a direction, like a compass needle that doesn't know yet what it is pointing toward but keeps swinging, keeps searching, keeps refusing to settle. The flight has 4 more hours. Cale shifts Ias to his left arm and presses his right hand flat against his own chest for a moment, like he's trying to steady something internal. He's wearing a silver tie pin shaped like a thin horizontal line, minimalist, understated, the kind of accessory that only means something if you know what it cost. He bought it in a shop in Connecticut 3 years ago. He does not remember what the shop was called. He remembers that the woman at the counter had a kind face and that he had been in a good mood that day. He has not been in a good mood in a very long time. "Give him to me," Ronan says. Cale passes the baby carefully. There's a practiced precision to the handoff, the way people move when they have done something many times under stress. Ias transitions from one set of arms to another, and for a half second his crying dips. His small face shifts. His eyes, dark, serious, older looking than any 5-month-old has a right to be, move around the cabin like he is searching for something that keeps not being there. Ronan begins to hum. Low and tuneless at first, then steadier. It is the kind of hum that has no name, no melody anyone would recognize, just a low, repetitive vibration from somewhere deep in the chest. Ronan closes his eyes and sways slightly in the wide first-class seat, and for a moment he looks less like a billionaire and more like a man standing in a doorway, trying to decide whether to step through. Ias keeps crying. Ronan opens his eyes. Deja is back. She is standing just at the edge of the first-class curtain, one hand on the partition rail, head tilted slightly. Behind her, through the gap in the curtain, the economy cabin stretches back, full, buzzing with the quieter noise of 100 other passengers, seatback screens glowing blue and white in the dimmed cabin light. "I can try walking him again," Deja offers. Her voice is warm, she means it. "No," Cale does not say it harshly. He says it the way men say things when they have decided something is their problem and their problem alone. A wall built not from anger but from pride, and something that looks like shame if you turn it sideways. We'll manage. Zevran's eyes move past Deja, past the curtain, into the economy cabin and stop. He does not know why they stop. He could not explain it if asked. But his eyes stop moving the way a car stops when it reaches the edge of a cliff, not slowly, not gradually. Just stop. There is someone back there. He cannot see clearly through the curtain gap in the low light. He can only see the outline of someone in an aisle seat middle section, perhaps 15 rows back, leaning forward slightly with their elbows on their knees and their face tilted up, as if they have been listening to the baby cry for a long time and are deciding in real time what to do about it. Zevran watches. The figure does not move. Ia screams again, one sharp, short burst, and then impossibly the tiniest pause. Half a breath of quiet, less than a second, but Zevran catches it, his eyes narrow. He leans forward in his seat and looks past Deja, past the curtain, across the gap between cabins, and the figure in the economy aisle seat slowly lifts their head. Zevran cannot see their face yet, but something in his chest moves, something old. Something he has not felt move in a very long time. Ias pulls in a short breath and starts again, but this time even Kale feels it. The cry shifts, just slightly. The way a song shifts key, same notes, different weight. Kale and Ronan exchange a look over the baby's head. A look with no words in it, because they have been brothers long enough that some things do not need words. Something is different, something in the cabin has changed. They just do not know what yet. Deja glances back toward economy, then back at the triplets. Her expression holds something careful, something she is choosing professionally not to say. And the figure in the economy cabin, whoever they are, slowly, quietly stands up. Kale virally does not panic. In 15 years of business, he has faced hostile takeovers, federal investigations, a stock market freefall that cost him $80 million in a single afternoon, and a Category 4 hurricane that grounded his entire fleet of private jets during a critical deal close in Miami. He did not panic in any of those moments. He simply narrowed his eyes, identified the problem, identified the solution, and moved. He has been staring at Ias for 44 minutes and he cannot identify the solution. This is new. Ronan is up again. He cannot sit still when something is wrong. He never could. He is packing the narrow strip of first-class aisle between the seats and the partition curtain, Ias pressed against his shoulder, one hand cupped at the base of the baby's head the way a coach cups the back of a player's neck, firm, present, willing. Ias is crying into Ronan's collar. Ronan's jaw is a hard line. He mouths something quietly, not words anyone can hear, just the shape of comfort, the motion of trying. A passenger in 3B lifts the eye mask off her face and stares at the ceiling for 3 full seconds before she puts it back on. She does not say anything. She does not have to. Kale stands. He moves to the aisle and takes the baby from Ronan with a single nod. The handoff is seamless, practiced. This is the 4th time they have traded Ias back and forth in the last hour, and there is something quietly devastating about watching 3 men who command rooms full of people, men who are obeyed without question in every professional space they enter, trade a 5-month-old between them like a live wire none of them know how to hold for more than 10 minutes. He needs to sleep, Kale says. His voice is low and controlled. It is the voice he uses when he is managing himself. I know he needs to sleep, Ronan says. Then we need to figure out. I know what we need to do, Kale. Ronan stops packing. He faces his brother across the narrow aisle, and there is something in his expression that is not quite anger, more like grief wearing anger's coat. I've been holding him for 30 minutes. He won't settle. He won't take the bottle. He's not sick. The temperature on his neck is normal. He's not wet. He stops, presses the back of one hand briefly to his mouth, looks away. He just misses. He doesn't finish that sentence. He doesn't need to. All 3 of them know what that sentence ends with, and none of them are ready to say the word out loud at 35,000 feet in the middle of an airplane cabin with strangers 8 inches away on every side. Zevran has not moved from his seat. He is still watching the gap in the curtain. His rings are still on the tray table. He has taken his watch off, the Rolex, the one with the Jubilee bracelet and the champagne dial, and set it face down beside the rings. He does not know why he did that. It felt right, like something that costs that much should not be worn while watching something that costs nothing and means everything. Zev, Kale says. Zevran does not look away from the curtain. Zevran, someone is coming, Zevran says quietly. Kale frowns. What? From economy. Zevran's voice is even, measured. But there is a wire running under it, the kind of tension that is not fear exactly, more like recognition arriving before the brain is ready to process it. Someone stood up. They've been standing at the curtain for about 2 minutes. Ronan turns toward the partition. The curtain moves, not dramatically, not thrown back or parted with intention. Just the edge of it shifts, the way a curtain shifts when someone is standing very close to the other side, and has been standing there long enough to make a decision. Ias in Kale's arms cuts his crying short, 1 full beat of silence. Kale feels it in his arms, the baby's body changing, the rigid, furious tension of a child who has been crying for so long it has become a state of being, softening, just slightly, just at the edges. Like something in Ias's body has registered a frequency that the rest of the cabin cannot yet hear. Then Ias starts again. But the pitch is different, lower, still distressed, but different distress. Searching distress. Deja Bout appears at the edge of the curtain from the economy side and leans through with a careful expression. Excuse me, there's a passenger from economy who... She pauses, chooses her words with the practiced ease of someone trained to manage complicated situations without nomming them directly. Who would like to check on the baby if that's all right? All three brothers look at her. Why, Kale says. It is not a question. Deja holds the look for one measured second. She says she thinks she might be able to help. Ronan's eyebrows go up. The kind of up that means he's about to say something sharp, because sharp is what he reaches for when he is scared and trying not to show it. Zevran says, quietly, almost to himself. A single word, but his voice carries it differently than a question. Carries it the way someone carries the name of something they have been looking for without knowing they were looking for it. Deja confirms. Neutral, professional. Eyes giving nothing extra away. Kale looks down at Ias. The baby's eyes are scanning. Wide, dark, scanning the space in front of them with the exhausting intensity of a child whose whole body is one long, unresolved question. Kale has never in his life allowed a stranger to approach his son. Not on the ground, not in the air, not in any space, controlled or uncontrolled. The security around this child has been a precision operation from the moment Ias entered the world, monitored, managed, insulated. Kale built that wall himself, brick by brick, because that is what he knows how to do. Build walls and call them protection. He looks at Deja, then at the curtain, then at Ias. Send her in, he says. Ronan stares at him. Kale does not explain. He does not have words for it yet, the thing that made him say yes without pause, without protocol, without the 3-second delay he applies to every significant decision. He just said it the way you say yes to something your body has already decided before your mind catches up. Zevran is already looking at the curtain, and the curtain moves. The first thing anyone notices is that she is not what they expected. No designer bag, no Prada anything. No Chanel perfume that announces itself before the person does. She's wearing a plain white cardigan over a light gray shirt, dark straight-leg jeans, and clean white sneakers that look like they belong to someone who bought them because they were comfortable and not because of what the label said. She has a small, worn crossbody bag on one shoulder, the kind that has been washed so many times the stitching has softened. Her hair is natural, pulled back at the nape of her neck with a simple black band. She is young, younger than any of them expected. Maybe early 20s. Maybe younger, the kind of young that does not know yet how rare it is. High cheekbones, a clear, composed face, dark eyes that are steady in a way that has nothing to do with boldness and everything to do with someone who has spent a long time in their own quiet company and learned to be still inside it. Her name is Kairos Vale, and she walks into first class like she's not walking into first class at all, like she's simply walking towards something she already knows is there. Hale tracks her from the moment the curtain moves. He is still holding Ias, and every muscle in his body has gone into the particular stillness that is his version of high alert, the stillness of a man who has learned that reacting too fast costs more than waiting. He watches her close the distance between the curtain and where he stands. 8 steps. 9. She does not rush. She does not slow down to read the room. She moves the way water moves, finding the lowest point without arguing with the terrain. Ronan is standing at the edge of the aisle with his arms crossed. His expression is guarded and worn at the same time. The face of a man who is running on empty and knows it and is too proud to say it but is 2 minutes away from saying it anyway. Zevran has not moved from his seat, but his whole body has turned toward her. Like a plant that spent a long time in a dark room and has just detected light through a window it forgot existed. She stops 3 feet from Kale. She does not look at Kale. She looks at Ias, and something remarkable happens. Ias, who has been screaming for almost an hour, who has rattled the composure of 3 billionaires and the professional calm of an entire flight crew, who has driven a first-class cabin full of adults past the edge of patience and halfway toward pity. Ias stops, not slowly, not gradually, not the way a child winds down when exhaustion finally wins. He stops the way a phone stops ringing when someone picks up on the other end. Complete silence. Instant, Ias stares at Kairos Vale with the focused, unblinking seriousness of a child who has just found the exact thing he has been screaming for, and is now completely occupied with making sure it does not disappear. No one speaks. The cabin, the passengers who have been enduring, the flight attendant who has been running back and forth, the 3 men who have been running out of options. No one moves. The quiet is so complete and so sudden that it has weight. It presses down on the space. Someone in 4A lets out a long breath through their nose and it sounds loud. Deja Bout, standing at the curtain, brings one hand up to her mouth. Kairos does not react to the silence with triumph. She does not smile with satisfaction or look around to see if anyone noticed. She keeps her eyes on the baby with a softness that is not performance. It is just the natural expression of someone looking at something they love and have missed and are trying not to show how much they have missed it. Her right hand lifts slowly, carefully, and she extends one finger toward Ias. Ias grabs it. Both of his hands wrap around her one finger with the grip of a child who is done asking and has decided to simply hold on. His eyes do not blink. His face, still flushed from crying, slowly relaxes the way a storm-bent tree relaxes when the wind stops, not immediately upright but moving there. Kairos exhales through her nose. Kale feels it, the shift in the baby's body. The weight of Ias changing in his arms the way a person's weight changes when they stop fighting. He watches the baby's face. He watches the grip of those 2 small hands around the stranger's single finger. And something in Kale's chest does something he has no approved category for. He raises his eyes to Kairos. She has not looked at him yet. She is still looking at Ias. but there is a line of tension running through her jaw and her shoulder that tells Kale she knows exactly where he is and exactly what expression he is wearing and has made a decision, deliberate and careful, to not look at him yet. Because once she does, something will change, and she's giving herself these last few seconds before that happens. Kale has always been perceptive. It is both his greatest professional gift and his most exhausting personal quality. He sees things people do not mean to show. He reads the room before he is fully in it. He knows, the way he knew in that boardroom in New Jersey 3 years ago, that a deal was about to collapse before anyone said a word. He knows that this woman is not a stranger. Not entirely, not in the way that matters. Kairos, Ronan says, it is barely above a whisper. The name leaves his mouth the way something leaves your mouth when your brain has been holding it for so long that the sound of it shocks even the person saying it. Like the name is a door and saying it opens the door, and now everything that was behind it is standing in the room. Kairos still does not look up, but her hand, the one that Ias is gripping, trembles. Once small, barely visible, she breathes through it. And then finally she looks up. Her eyes find Ronan first, then Kale, then drift slow, controlled to Zevran, who is sitting very still in his seat and looking at her with the expression of a man assembling a picture that has been in pieces on the floor for a long time. None of them say anything else. Ias makes a small sound. Not a cry. A soft, satisfied murmur, the kind of sound a baby makes when the thing they needed finally arrives, and they are settling into the relief of it. And in the silence of the first-class cabin, with 40 rows of strangers behind the curtain and 4 hours of flight time still ahead, the past walks back into the room without knocking. Kale's voice comes out low and controlled, the way all his voices come out because he has spent 20 years training himself to sound controlled even when he is not. Are you on this flight? He says. It is not a question. It is the beginning of something much larger pretending to be a question. Kairos looks at him for one long, steady moment, and then she looks back down at Ias. He needed me, she says simply. The cabin hums around them. The engine noise fills every pause. Ias's small fingers tighten around hers, and Kale realizes, with the cold, clean clarity of a man who has just found the answer to a question that has been destroying him quietly for months, that the baby has been crying for her the entire time. Kairos' veil does not sit down because she is invited. She sits down because Ias makes the decision for her. He leans his whole small body toward her the moment Kale shifts his weight, and the physics of a 5-month-old with his mind made up leaves no room for argument. Kale transfers the baby with the mechanical precision of someone managing an action his emotions are not yet ready to catch up to. His hands brush Kairos' forearm in the handoff, barely, and he steps back immediately, like the contact cost him something he has not budgeted for. Kairos settles Ias against her chest. The baby burrows in, fist curled against her collarbone, cheek pressed to the soft fabric of her white cardigan, eyes still open but beginning to slow that heavy half-mast drift of a child who has finally stopped fighting sleep because safety has arrived. She presses her lips lightly to the top of his head. Kale turns away. He moves to the window seat that Zevran has shifted from and stands with his hands braced on the headrest and his back to the cabin, staring at the solid black nothing outside the aircraft window. The kind of nothing that is actually everything. 35,000 feet of air and dark and distance between this moment and the ground. Ronan sits. He does not trust his legs right now. He folds into the seat across the aisle and puts his elbows on his knees and his face in his hands for exactly 4 seconds. And when he lifts his head again, his expression is the specific expression of a man who has just understood that a thing he thought he had managed was never managed at all. It was just waiting. Zevran is standing in the aisle between them. He is looking at Kairos, and Ias the way a person looks at a photograph they have been trying to remember and have just found at the back of a drawer, with the particular quiet devastation of recognition arriving too late to be useful and too clear to be ignored. Illinois, Kairos says quietly. No one asked. She says it the way someone states a coordinate, precise and necessary. You were in Chicago, Zevran says. Yes. The word lands in the cabin like a stone into still water. Simple. Shattering in the ripple of it. All this time, Ronan says, it is not a question either. It is the specific sound of a man doing a calculation he should have done months ago and arriving at a number he cannot afford. Kairos does not answer that. She adjusts Ias slightly and runs one thumb in slow circles on the baby's back. She has done this before. This exact motion, this exact pressure, and the ease of it is visible in her hands. This is not someone holding someone else's baby. This is someone holding a baby they know in the dark. You didn't tell us, Kale says. He has not turned around yet. His voice comes from the window, flat against the glass, not accusatory, flattened out, like he's delivering information and feeling the weight of it at the same time. No, Kairos says. Why? She does not answer immediately. She watches Ias. His eyes are at 3/4 now. His breathing has slowed to the deep, even pull of a child who is finally letting his body rest. One small hand is still wrapped around her finger. Because I knew what you would do, she says. Kale turns. He looks at her across the cabin, across the narrow, carpeted aisle of first class, across the low cabin light and the hum of the engines and the 8 months of nothing between now and the last time he saw her. And his face is doing something that Kale Virley's face almost never does in front of other people. It is doing something honest. What would we have done? He asks. Kairos raises her eyes. She holds his gaze directly, not challenging, not soft. The way you hold a gaze when you have rehearsed what you would say in this exact conversation for a very long time and have arrived at the truth of it without flourish. You would have managed it, she says. The word managed sits in the air between them. All three brothers here at land, managed, the way they manage everything. The way Kale builds frameworks around problems and calls it support. The way Ronan overfeels and oversteps and mistakes intensity for care. The way Zevran calculates outcomes and presents options and never once asks what someone needs before telling them what he thinks they should want managed. It is the most precise, most devastating word she could have chosen, and she did not raise her voice to say it. Ronan's head drops back. He stares at the ceiling of the aircraft cabin. The overhead light catches the damp in his eyes, and he lets it because there is nowhere to go on a plane. Nowhere to excuse yourself to, nowhere to step outside and get it together before coming back in. You are here, you stay here, the plane keeps moving, and so does everything you have been trying not to say. New Jersey, he says quietly. That last week in New Jersey. Kairos says nothing. You already knew, Ronan says. His voice has dropped to something rough and low, not a question. The pieces arranging themselves into a picture none of them will be able to unsee once it is fully assembled. When we were in New Jersey, you already knew. She smooths Ias's blanket over his back. Her movements are slow and deliberate, the movements of a person staying very careful and very present because the alternative is falling apart, and she has made a decision not to do that here, not on this plane, not in front of them. I found out 2 days before you left for California, she says. The plane shifts, a minor adjustment of altitude, a slight drop that the pilot levels out in under 3 seconds. The passengers who were sleeping don't even stir, but in first class the movement feels different, heavier. 2 days, Kale repeats. Yes, you didn't. He stops. He's aware enough to hear how that sentence would end and aware enough to know he does not have the right to end it the way he was going to. His hand goes to the back of his neck. He looks at the ceiling the same way Ronan did, the involuntary lift of a man whose chest is too full and needs somewhere to put it. Kairos, she looks at him. I didn't think you would choose me, she says, simple, clean. A sentence she has carried a long time and finally set down in the middle of this cabin aisle. Not when it mattered, not when staying would cost you something real. Zevran makes a sound, low and involuntary, the sound of a word arriving too late. Kale shakes his head. Slow, once, the kind of headshake that is not disagreement. It is a man absorbing a truth about himself that he does not want to be true and has no argument against. We didn't know how, he says. The sentence comes out stripped. No defense around it, no framework or qualifier or managerial language to hold it at arm's length. Just the raw, honest bottom of it. 3 men who had more power and resource than most people would accumulate in 3 lifetimes, and who still, in the moment that counted, did not know how to show up for one person who was not asking them to manage anything, just to stay. Ias's breathing has settled into deep, even sleep. His body is completely relaxed against Kairos' chest, the complete total relaxation of a baby who has found what he was looking for and has decided, in the uncomplicated logic of infancy, that he is going to hold on to it. Kairos looks down at him for a long moment, then she looks up. Ronan is watching her. He has not blinked in a very long time. His hands are flat on his thighs. His jaw is working quietly, the muscle moving in his cheek the way it moves when he is holding something in that is building pressure. You raised him alone, he says, for 5 months. Chicago? By yourself. Yes, Ronan. Repetition of it, by yourself, by yourself, by yourself, lands in the 3 different places it needs to land. Each of them takes it differently. Kale takes it in the shoulders, a visible, physical weight. Ronan takes it in the eyes. Zevran takes it in the stillness that goes through him, the complete particular stillness of a man who is doing very precise internal work and hiding none of it well. The cabin hums, Ia sleeps. And somewhere over the middle of this country, above the invisible line between where they were and where they are going, something that has been broken for 8 months sits in the open air of this first-class cabin for the first time, not fixed, not even close to fixed, but visible now, impossible to look away from. Ronan leans forward. He reaches across the aisle slowly, without rushing, giving her the space to see his hand coming in to decide, and he places his open palm on the empty seat beside Kairos, not touching her, just there. Kairos looks at his hand for a long moment. She does not reach back, but she does not look away, and somewhere in the quiet that follows, Ias, deeply asleep, makes the smallest sound. A murmur so low and content it should not be audible over the engine noise. But every single person in that small section of the aircraft hears it, and Ronan's hand stays exactly where it is. The turbulence hits at the 40-minute mark. It is not dramatic turbulence, not the kind that sends drinks sliding and prompts the seat belt sign to ping on with urgency. It is the low, rolling kind, the kind that feels like the plane is moving over uneven ground, like the air itself has texture. The kind that reminds you, quietly and without theatrics, that you are inside a metal cylinder moving at 500 miles an hour above the earth, and the only thing between you and that fact is a very thin layer of cabin pressure, and the decision to not think about it. Ias stirs, just slightly. His face scrunches in his sleep, one fast, tight expression of displeasure, and then releases. His small hand, still loosely curled around Kairos' finger, tightens once and relaxes. Kairos has not moved from the seat. She has been sitting in the same position for 40 minutes with a sleeping baby against her chest, and 3 men arranged in a loose, careful arc around her, not crowding, not retreating, just present in the unresolved way people are present when they are in the middle of something and no one has figured out what to do with the middle yet. Kale has taken the seat across from Zevran. His jacket is off, draped over the armrest, the Tom Ford label face down. His tie is loosened 1 inch. For Kale, that is the physical equivalent of sitting in the middle of the floor with his head in his hands. His elbows are on his knees and he is looking at the space between his feet and thinking something no one can read on his face because Kale has spent a very long time making sure no one can read what he is thinking on his face. Zevran is beside the window. His rings are back on. He put them on one by one during the silence after Ronan's hand on the seat, a small, methodical action that meant nothing and meant everything. When Zevran needs to think, he does small, contained things with his hands. The rings are an anchor. Ronan's hand is no longer on the seat beside Kairos. He moved it after a few minutes of her not reaching back but also not moving away and placed it in his own lap. He is looking at Kairos directly. He has been looking at her the way you look at someone when you have too many things to say and are trying to find the one that is the most true and the most fair and the least likely to make everything worse. Want to understand something, Ronan says. Kairos does not look up from Ias. Ask, when you left, he pauses, reconstructs. When you went to Chicago, what were you thinking those first few weeks? What was the actual plan? There was no plan, Kairos says. Ronan's brow pulls. None, surviving was the plan. She says it without self-pity. The way you stayed a weather condition, cold in January, hot in July, surviving when there is nothing else. I had savings. I had a contact in Chicago through a graduate program I'd deferred. I found a 1-bedroom in Wicker Park and I made it work. A 1-bedroom, Kale says. Yes, the word sits between them. Kale is doing math, the involuntary kind, the kind a man does when he has more resources than he knows what to do with and discovers that someone he knew spent 8 months in a 1-bedroom apartment in Wicker Park making it work alone. The math is not complicated. The outcome of it is, Kyra, Zevran says. It is the first time he has said her name out loud on this flight. His voice is lower and quieter than his brother's, the voice of a man who does not use words unless he means them. Did you want to come back? The question lands differently from Zevran than it would have from Ronan or Kale. Ronan's version of that question would have been louder and more urgent. Kale's would have had management around it, framing, context, a controlled delivery. Zevran's is clean, direct. The knife-edge question beneath all the other questions, did you want to come back? Kairos is quiet for long enough that the turbulence rolls through again, that same low, uneven movement, and Ias's hand tightens on her finger again and she holds her breath through it and then releases. Yes, she says, the single word does something to the air in the cabin. Not relief, not yet, not anywhere near yet, but something, an opening, a door that was nailed shut cracking at the frame. But I didn't trust it, she continues. Her voice is still quiet, still steady. The steadiness of someone who has made peace with a thing and is now simply describing it, the way you describe geography. The mountain is here, the river is there, the gap between them is this wide. I didn't trust that coming back would mean what I wanted it to mean, and I didn't want to find out the hard way with a baby that it didn't. Ronan exhales, long and controlled. So you made the decision for us. I made the decision for Ias, she says. There is a distinction in that sentence, and all three brothers feel it hit in different places. That's the same thing, Kale says. No, it isn't. Kairos finally looks up. She looks at Kale first, holds his gaze even. If I had come back to you and it fell apart, if you had managed it the way you manage things and it had felt like every other time I was included but not chosen, Ias would have grown up in the middle of that. He would have grown up watching me accept half of something and call it enough. She pauses. Ias moves in his sleep, a small shift, a tiny resettling. I wasn't going to do that to him. Cabin hums. Kale looks at her for a long moment. Something passes through his face, not one single emotion, but a sequence of them, moving too fast for any individual one to be named. He is a man who has spent his entire adult life being the one who makes the call, the final authority, the one who decides. He is sitting in a first-class seat at 35,000 feet looking at a woman who 8 months ago made a call he did not see coming and could not counter and cannot argue against, because she made it for a reason that is more sound than anything he would have used to make the opposite call. He knows this. The knowing of it is not comfortable. You weren't going to let it fall apart, Ronan says. But even he hears it as he says it, the way the sentence sounds more like insistence than evidence. He hears it and his voice drops. Kairos, we wouldn't have. You don't know that, she says gently. You know, Ronan. Her voice is not sharp. It is the precise opposite of sharp. It is soft and even and completely immovable. You don't know that because you didn't know how. You said it yourself 10 minutes ago. You said it, and that's the most honest thing any of you have said to me in the time that I knew you. She looks at him steadily. I'm not angry at you for not knowing how. I'm really not. But I needed you to get there on your own. I couldn't teach you how to choose me and then trust that you meant it. Sentence finishes and the cabin absorbs it. Zevran looks out the window. The darkness outside is total, the nothing of high altitude, no horizon, no ground reference. Just black and the faint reflection of the cabin on the glass. He can see himself in it, slightly the ghost of his own face looking back. He reaches up and turns off his overhead light. The ghost disappears. Illinois, he says quietly, still looking at the window. You were in Illinois the whole time. Could have, he stops, starts again. If we had looked, I know, he nods once, very slow. The nod of a man who has filed something and knows exactly where it will sit inside him and has accepted that it is going to sit there for a very long time. The turbulence moves through the cabin again. This time it is slightly stronger, the plane adjusting, finding its footing in the air the way a person finds their footing on uneven ground. The seat belt sign pings on. A flight attendant's voice comes over the speaker, calm, practiced, asking passengers to return to their seats. Ias opens his eyes wide. Awake in that immediate, complete way Bobby's wake, no groggy transition, just gone and then present. He looks up at Kairos with the dark, serious expression that Kale recognizes from 1,000 mornings of looking in a mirror, the precise, assessing gaze of someone taking stock of the situation before deciding how to respond to it. Then Ias looks across the aisle. He looks at Ronan. Ronan sits very still. Ias stares at him for 3 full seconds. Then he makes a sound, not a cry, not a laugh, something in between, something that has no clean category, an acknowledgement, a question. Small, uncertain reaching out from a baby who does not have language yet but has something older than language, the body's instinct toward what is its. Ronan's chest moves. One breath, deep. The kind that has to be deliberate. He extends one hand toward Ias, open, palm up, fingers relaxed, and holds it steady in the air between them. Ias looks at the hand, looks at Ronan's face, looks at the hand again. And the baby Kairos holds her breath, begins to cry. Not the desperate, searching scream from before. A different cry, smaller, confused, the cry of a child who is looking at something they do not fully know but somehow already feel the weight of. Kairos presses her lips together. Ronan does not pull his hand back. He keeps it exactly where it is. Open, steady, patient in a way that is new on him, a way none of them have seen from him before because Ronan is not patient. Ronan moves. Ronan feels and reaches and tries, but right now he is still. He is waiting. He's giving Ias every second this takes. The baby cries. Ronan's hand does not move. And the seatbelt sign stays on and the plane finds its footing in the dark air above the middle of this country and somewhere in first class in the space between one man's open hand and a baby's uncertain face. Something that has been frozen for 8 months begins at the very edges to shift. Chapter 6. Ronan's hand is still in the air, open, palm up, not moving, not retreating. Just there, steady in a way that costs him something visible because Ronan virally does not do still. He does forward, he does urgent, he does the kind of feeling that fills a room and asks the room to feel it back. Stillness is not in his nature, but he is doing it now with every muscle in his body for a baby who is crying at him from 4 feet away and has not decided yet whether to trust the hand or the face behind it. Ias cries. Small, uncertain, the kind of crying that is more question than distress. His dark eyes move between Ronan's open palm and Ronan's face, back and forth, with the slow, methodical attention of a child doing the most important evaluation of his short life. Kale watches from his seat and does not move. He has learned in the last 40 minutes that moving is not always the answer. He has spent most of his life believing that the right action applied at the right speed can solve almost anything. He is sitting with the possibility, uncomfortable, unfamiliar, that some things do not need action. Some things need witness. Zevran reaches into the seat pocket in front of him and pulls out a small item, the white noise machine Deja left earlier. He turns it on quietly. Ocean waves, low and steady, filling the air around them without asking permission. Ias's crying softens by half a degree. Ronan does not move his hand. Then, not fast, not dramatic, but undeniable, Ias leans forward in Kairos' arms, just slightly. The lean of a small body deciding something. His right hand releases Kairos' finger and lifts, wobbly, imprecise, the physical grammar of a baby reaching before the body has fully learned how, and his fingers brush the edge of Ronan's palm. Ronan stops breathing. It is the most expensive thing anyone has ever touched his hand with, and it costs nothing. 5 small fingers, soft as anything he has ever held, resting at the edge of his open palm with the tentative pressure of trust being extended 1 millimeter at a time. Ronan closes his hand, slow, careful around those fingers. Ias looks at their joined hands, then up at Ronan's face. Ronan's jaw is working. The muscle in his cheek is moving in that way it moves when he is holding something very large inside a very controlled space. His eyes are bright and direct, and he does not look away from the baby because looking away right now feels like something he will not be able to come back from. Hey, Ronan says, barely above a whisper. The word is nothing, the smallest word, and it lands with the weight of everything he cannot say yet. Hey, Ias. Baby stares at him. Kairos watches this from 6 inches away, and her face does the thing faces do when grief and relief arrive at the same time and cannot be separated. A tightening around the eyes, a stillness in the jaw, a specific quality of attention that looks like holding your breath even when you are breathing just fine. She has imagined this moment. In the 1-bedroom in Wicker Park, in the blue dark of 3 a.m. feeding hours, with the city quiet outside and Ias warm and heavy in her arms, she imagined what it would look like when this happened. When Ias met them, when they met him. She imagined it dozens of times, and in none of those versions did it happen on a plane in first class over the middle of the country with turbulence rolling through and a white noise machine playing ocean waves. But here it is. Here it actually is. Zevran removes his Rolex from his wrist. He does not make a production of it. He simply unclasps it and sets it face down on the tray table beside him, the same way he set it down earlier, the same deliberate placement. But this time Kairos sees him do it. She watches his hands as he sets it down and does not pick it up again. And she understands the gesture the way you understand a language you did not know you spoke. The watch is the most outwardly powerful thing on his body and he is putting it away. Not because someone asked, because the moment requires it. He looks up and finds her watching. He does not explain, she does not ask him to. Kale stands. He moves slowly, not toward Kairos, not toward Ias, but to the small overhead compartment above his seat. He opens it and reaches past his carry-on, a sleek black tumi, initialed in silver, and pulls out a folded square of soft fabric. A blanket, not a plain blanket, something brought from home. Charcoal gray, thick, the kind of blanket that means someone packed it because they knew there would be a night that needed it. He brings it to Kairos without a word. She looks at it, then at him. He holds it out, steady. She takes it. She unfolds it with one hand. Ias is still holding Ronan's fingers with his right hand, still attached, unwilling to let go, and drapes it over Ias's legs and lower body. The baby immediately reaches down with his free hand and grabs a fistful of the soft fabric. Kale stands beside the seat for a moment after. He does not sit. He does not leave. He stands there the way a person stands when they have done the one thing they knew how to do and are waiting to see if it was enough and are aware, fully aware that it probably is not enough on its own, but it is what they had. Kairos pulls the blanket up slightly. Thank you, she says, quiet, clean. Kale nods once. He sits down in the seat directly across from her, not at an angle, not by the window. Directly across, where he can see Ias's face and Kairos' face and everything happening between them. He leans forward. Elbows on knees, he looks at his son. Ias is looking back at him, Ronan's hand still held, Kale's blanket balled in the other fist, with that dark, assessing, too-old gaze that Kale has seen in his own mirror every morning of his adult life. He has your eyes, Kairos says softly. Kale's throat moves. He does not say anything. But his shoulders, those broad, controlled, permanently braced shoulders, drop by exactly 1 degree. It is the smallest physical movement. It is the most significant thing that has happened in this cabin all night. The ocean wave sound continues, low and steady, filling the quiet where words are not yet ready to go. And Ias, holding the hand of a man he does not know and the blanket of another and the heart of a woman who carried him alone through 8 months of winter, closes his eyes. This time he stays asleep. The descent announcement comes like a verdict. The pilot's voice filters through the overhead speakers, calm, male, the specifically neutral tone of airline professionalism, informing the cabin that they have begun their initial descent into John F. Kennedy International Airport. Current local time, 11:47 p.m. Temperature on the ground, 51 degrees. They are expected to land in approximately 40 minutes. Ronan looks up from Ias, who is asleep in Kairos' arms with Ronan's hand still loosely encircled by the baby's fingers. The baby's grip has relaxed in sleep, not let go, just relaxed, and Ronan has not moved his hand in over 30 minutes. His arm is at an angle that cannot be comfortable. He has not adjusted it once. He looks at Kairos. After we land, he says. Kairos meets his eyes. After we land, what happens? He asks it plainly, not demanding, not building a case. The genuine, stripped-back question of a man who has run out of the strategy he usually uses to approach difficult conversations and is standing in the space where strategy used to be. You get in a car and go somewhere we can't find you again, do you? He stops. I need to know what you're thinking. Kairos is quiet for a moment. She looks down at Ias. The baby's face in sleep is completely unguarded, the total, effortless piece of a child who has found his place and closed his eyes in it. She watches him breathe. I don't have a plan for after, she says. I didn't expect this flight. No one expected this flight, Zevran says from the window seat, something in his voice, dry, precise, carrying the faintest edge of the rye, cuts through the weight of the moment just enough. Ronan makes a sound that is almost a laugh, not quite, close enough to change the air. Kairos looks at Zevran. No, she agrees, and the corner of her mouth moves. The smallest movement, barely there, gone in a second, but it was a smile. The first one, real and unplanned and gone almost before anyone can register it, but Kale registers it. He registers it the way you register the first degree of warmth after a long cold, not enough to trust yet, but enough to know it is real. Kale sits forward. I want to say something, he says. The cabin listens. Even the engine noise seems to hold. Not going to ask you to trust us, Kale says. Because I know what trust costs and I know we spend it badly and I know you cannot just reload it because we're asking. That's not how it works. He looks at Kairos directly, level, unmanaged. But I need you to hear this. He pauses. The pause is not theatrical. It is the pause of a man making sure he says the true thing and not the practiced version of the true thing. We did not know how to choose you because we had never learned how to choose someone who did not need us. Everyone in our lives has always needed something: money, access, influence, proximity. We are very good at being needed. We have spent our whole lives being very good at that. His jaw tightens. You never needed us for any of that, and we did not know what to do with that, so we did what we always do when we do not know what to do. You managed it, Kairos says. We managed it, Kale says. And we lost you. The sentence sits in the cabin air. Ronan looks at the floor. Zevran has turned from the window and is looking at his brother, something in his expression that is close to respect and close to grief, and is probably both at the same time. Kairos is looking at Kale. She is doing the thing she does with her eyes when she is thinking, a slight focus, a pulling inward, taking in what was said and sitting with it instead of responding to it immediately. She learned that from a long time of being in rooms where people spoke before they thought, and she learned to do the opposite. That was honest, she says finally. It was supposed to be, Kale says. I know. She nods slowly. I know it was. She shifts Ias slightly, adjusting his weight with the ease of someone who has done this so many times it is muscle memory, and looks at all three of them in the quiet way she does everything, taking them in. I'm not made of glass. I didn't break. She looks at Ronan. I found a program, I finished my coursework, I built a life in a city I didn't know. I did it because I had to and because ES needed me to. She looks at Kale. But I am tired. The word lands simply and completely. I have been tired for 8 months, and I don't say that to make you feel worse. I say it because you asked to understand, and that is part of the truth. Ronan raises his free hand, the one ES is not holding, and covers his face. Just for a moment. 3 seconds, maybe 4. Then he drops it and his eyes are red at the edges and he does not do anything to hide it. What do you need? Zevran asks. The question lands in the middle of the cabin and everyone feels it differently. It is the question Kairos said in that quiet, devastating way she said things that she had needed them to ask. Not what can we offer, not what do we think you should have, what do you need? She looks at Zevran for a long time. Need it to be real, she says. Whatever comes next. I need it to be real and not managed. I need you to show up in the ways that cost you something, not just the ways that are easy for you. She looks around at all 3 of them. Kale, that means sitting in a room without fixing everything. Ronan, that means listening without filling every silence. Zevran, that means asking before you calculate. None of them argue. None of them qualify. Kale nods. Once Ronan nods, slower, like he's accepting a sentence and is going to serve it fully. Zevran looks at Eos for a long moment, then at Kairos. Okay, he says, simple. The simplest word he has used all night and the one that carries the most. The seat belt sign pings on again. The plane moves through the last layer of descent, that particular shifting of pressure that presses you back into your seat slightly, the body registering the ground coming back. New York is below them now. The lights of it are visible through Zevran's window, the vast complicated grid of a city that never actually sleeps, spreading out in every direction like a map of everything that is still possible. Eos's hand releases Ronan's fingers in sleep. Naturally. The way a hand releases when the body has finished holding on because it no longer needs to. Ronan looks at his own hand. Empty now. He curls his fingers slowly and looks at the space where those small fingers were. He held on the whole time, Ronan says quietly. He always does, Kairos says. Ronan looks up. Their eyes meet across the narrow cabin aisle over the head of a sleeping baby in a charcoal gray blanket in the middle of a descent into a city that is about to ask them all to be something in public that they have not yet figured out how to be in private. What's his full name? Ronan asks. His voice is low and rough-edged and real. Kairos looks at him, then down at the baby, then back up. Kairos Vale, she says. The 3 brothers absorb that. The baby carries her name, not theirs, not yet. Her name, the name of the woman who stayed when everything else left, who built a home in a city she did not know, who carried this child alone through 8 months and kept showing up every morning because she was the only one who did. Kale does not flinch, he breathes through it. That's a good name, he says, and he means it completely. The ground rises to meet them. The city lights expand. The flight attendants move through their final checks, trays up, seats forward, bags stowed, and the ordinary machinery of landing surrounds them. But in this section of the cabin, in these 4 seats and one sleeping baby between them, something has been turned carefully and without ceremony, like a key in a lock that has been frozen for a long time. It has not opened yet, but it has turned. The wheels touch the runway at 2 minutes past midnight. The impact is smooth, a professional landing, barely a bump, and the cabin fills with the mechanical thunder of deceleration, the engines revering, the massive weight of the aircraft pulling itself down to ground speed with the particular rumbling patience of something enormous that has decided to stop. Eos sleeps through all of it. He does not stir at the touchdown. Does not react to the engine noise or the shift in momentum or the collective exhale of 140 passengers arriving at the end of a flight that felt, in various ways, very long. He is completely, deeply asleep, face pressed to Kairos' collarbone, one fist curled in the gray blanket, breathing in the slow, full rhythm of a baby who has finally, fully rested. Kairos holds him through the landing. She holds him through the taxi. She holds him while the jet bridge connects and the cabin begins the slow, shuffling ritual of people reclaiming their overhead bags and their bodies from the sustained stillness of flight. She is not ready to put him down. She does not examine that feeling too closely. She just holds him. Deja Bout appears at the edge of the first-class section. Her professional composure is fully assembled again, crisp and present, but her eyes, when they land on Ia sleeping peacefully in Kairos' arms, do something they were not doing 2 hours ago. They soften in a way that has nothing to do with work. She has been a flight attendant for 11 years. She has seen arguments, medical events, proposals, grief, panic, and once, on a transatlantic flight, a man who attempted to conduct a board meeting via speakerphone for 4 hours. She has never seen what happened on this flight. She hands Kill a small card, the airline's priority ground services number. Your car is on the tarmac side, sir. Ground crew is standing by. Then she looks at Kairos. Is there anything else I can get you before you deplane? No, Kairos says. Thank you, Deja, for everything. Deja holds her gaze for a moment. Then she nods a clean, complete nod that means more than any sentence would and steps aside. Zevran stands and reaches for the overhead compartment. He pulls down his own bag and then, without being asked, pulls down Kairos' worn crossbody from the same compartment. He holds it out to her. She cannot take it. Both arms are occupied with Eos. Zevran looks at the bag, then at the baby. He makes a simple, practical decision. He loops the bag over his own shoulder, just carries it, does not comment on it, does not make it a gesture. just solves the immediate problem and moves toward the jet bridge. Ronan stands. He straightens his shirt, the Brooks Brothers one, with a faint damp patch at the shoulder where Ias cried against him, and does not try to fix it. He picks up his carry-on. He waits. Kale stands last. He folds his jacket over his arm. He picks up his bag. He looks at Kairos and Ias one more time, takes them in, deliberately, the way you look at something you are making a promise to, and then he moves toward the aisle and lets Kairos go first. This small thing, letting her go first, is the kind of thing no one would notice from the outside. But Kairos notices it. She notices the way the space parts around her as the three of them adjust their movement to hers. Not surrounding, not trapping, just reorganizing so that she has room. So that she is not being moved, but moving on her own terms with people around her who have, for the first time, thought about the difference. They move through the jet bridge. The fluorescent lighting is harsh after the dim cabin, white and flat and industrial. The lighting of airport infrastructure, unglamorous and honest. Kale's Tom Ford jacket looks like what it is under this light. Zevran's rings catch the fluorescent glare. Ronan's hair is slightly disordered from the hour of running his hand through it. They look like people, just people at the end of a long night. JFK's Terminal 8 at midnight is its own particular environment, the restless, half-populated energy of an airport between the last arrivals and the first departures. Cleaning crews move through the concourse. A few passengers from connecting flights sit in rows of plastic seats, scrolling phones or sleeping upright with that practiced, undignified airport sleep. An older man in a Yankees cap mops a section of floor near a closed Hudson News. The fluorescent lights buzz at a frequency you feel in your back teeth. The three Virely brothers move through it the way people move through spaces when they are accustomed to being noticed, not performing it, just carrying the particular upright posture and forward momentum of people who have always moved through rooms expecting them to accommodate. Two members of their ground security team appear from a side corridor and fall into position without a word. This is standard, automatic. Kairos walks beside Kale. She does not shrink. She does not widen her stance. She simply walks, Ias against her chest, bag on Zevran's shoulder ahead of her, and she moves through the terminal with the quiet, contained presence that has characterized everything she has done tonight, unhurried, unperformed, completely itself. A man in the terminal looks up from his phone as they pass. His gaze goes to the Virely brothers first. The recognition is immediate and visible. The way recognition of genuinely powerful people is always slightly delayed, like the brain has to confirm before it commits. Then his gaze moves to Kairos and Ias. He looks at the baby, he looks at the three men, he looks back at Kairos, and his expression completes a calculation that he keeps entirely to himself as they pass. They reach the secure exit. The ground crew is there, two black SUVs, engines idling, a team member with an umbrella because the temperature outside is 51 degrees and sharp with the particular edge of New York spring air at midnight. Everything is arranged. Everything is in order. This is what money looks like in motion, the world smoothed in advance of your arrival so that you move through it without friction. Kale holds the door, not the ground crew. Kale holds it. Kairos steps through. The cold air hits her. She pulls Ias slightly closer instinctively. The baby doesn't wake, just makes a small adjusting sound and settles deeper. She tilts her face up for 1 second into the cold night air above the tarmac and closes her eyes. She breathes, just breathes. Ronan comes through the door behind her and stops. Stands beside her in the cold, not close, just beside. And he tips his head back and looks up at the sky above JFK, which is not much of a sky, sliced as it is by flight paths and light pollution and the distant red blinking of aircraft on approach. But he looks at it anyway. I used to hate landing in New York, he says. Kairos opens her eyes and looks at him. Too loud, he says. Too much. I always felt like I needed 3 days to decompress after a New York trip. He pauses. Looks back down. I don't feel that right now. She does not ask him why. She already knows why. And he already knows that she knows. And both of them stand in the cold midnight air outside Terminal 8 with a sleeping baby between them and that knowledge in the air, and it is enough. For right now, just this moment, it is enough. Zevran steps through behind them. He holds out Kairos' bag. She takes it, this time one arm free since Ias has shifted in his sleep to allow it, and she settles the strap on her shoulder. The worn strap, the softened stitching, the bag that has been washed so many times the color has mellowed. She settles it on her shoulder the way you settle something familiar. Home-like. There's room, Kale says. He nods toward the SUV. If you want it. He does not frame it as more than that. There's room, a fact, an opening, not pressure dressed up as an offer, just room if she wants it. Kairos looks at the SUV, then at Ias. Then at the cold dark air between the terminal and the car. She takes a breath. Okay, she says, and she walks toward the car. The city does not care what happened on that plane. New York at midnight is the same city it is at noon, loud in a different register, lit in different colors, populated by a different shift of people who are awake for their own reasons, and moving toward their own destinations with the particular focus of a city that has decided, somewhere in its long history, that it does not have time to wait for anyone to be ready. The highway from JFK runs through it, through the overpass and the interchange and the long stretches of lit-up commercial strip that become, gradually, the cleaner lines of the city proper, and the black SUV carries all of them through it in a silence that is not uncomfortable, just full. The way silence is full when too many true things have been said in too short a time and the mind needs road to process it. Ias is still asleep. He is in a rear-facing infant seat that the ground team had prepared, a detail that Kairos noticed immediately when she climbed in, that someone on this team had a car seat ready, the right size, properly installed, and she had looked at Kale when she saw it and he had said very quietly that he had been traveling with it for 6 weeks. That he had been traveling with it everywhere he went for 6 weeks without a specific destination in mind, just carrying it. Because carrying it felt less like giving up than leaving it behind. She had not said anything, she had buckled Ias in, and now the baby sleeps in his seat, which is angled so that Kairos, seated beside him, can see his face, and she watches the city light move across his small features in the rhythmic way that highway driving produces, light and shadow, and she breathes with the steadiness of a woman who has learned to breathe steadily through things that are not steady at all. Ronan is in the front passenger seat. He has been quiet since the tarmac. He is looking out the window with his elbow on the door and his chin in his hand, watching the city the way he said he usually doesn't let himself watch it, which means right now he is doing the opposite of every usual thing. Hale sits in the third row behind the others, and the darkness back there is enough that you can only see his outline, the straight posture, the still hands in his lap, the outline of a man thinking very precisely about something and taking his time with it. Zevran is beside Kairos. He is looking at Ias. He has been looking at Ias since they got in the car with an expression that is private enough that Kairos has chosen not to comment on it, but she sees it. The way he looks at the baby, the way a person looks at something they recognize but cannot place, like a song you know from somewhere but cannot name the origin of. The recognition is in him. She can see it sitting in him, working through him, doing something to his face that the chrome hearts rings and the Rolex and the calculated precision of how he moves through the world have no mechanism to contain. He was 6 pounds 4 ounces, Kairos says, quiet, just to the air in the car, to whoever it reaches. When he was born, he came 3 days before the due date, quick labor. He was loud from the first second and then he just stopped and looked around. She pauses, like he was assessing the situation. Zevran makes a sound that is half a laugh, low, brief, real. He does that on the plane too, Zevran says. He does it every time, Kairos says. Every new environment. He goes quiet and looks around and you can see him deciding how he feels about where he is. He's been watching us all night, Ronan says from the front seat. He has turned slightly, not fully around, just enough to be part of the conversation. Like he was running some kind of evaluation. Kairos says. She glances at Ias. He does not warm up to people easily. Most people he cries with or he ignores. He has a very short list of people he'll actually settle with. Us, Kale says from the back. His voice comes through the dim space of the SUV, low and direct. Kairos looks at Ias. He held Ronan's hand for 30 minutes, she says. No one adds to that. No one needs to. The highway opens up as they cross into Queens, the lanes expanding, the city light rearranging itself into a different skyline angle. The driver, a quiet, professional man who has worked for the Virely security team for 4 years and has learned in that time to hear nothing he is not meant to hear, adjusts the climate control without being asked. The temperature inside the SUV settles to something warm, and even the kind of warmth that is considered in advance. Ias shifts in his sleep. Just slightly, a small internal adjustment, the way sleeping bodies redistribute themselves over time, and one of his arms lifts out of the blanket and rests on the armrest beside him, fingers open and loose. Zevran looks at that small, open hand for a very long moment. Then he reaches over slowly with the same deliberate care that Ronan used on the plane and rests the tip of one finger in Ias's open palm. Not pressing, not grasping, just there, available. Ias's fingers close around it in his sleep, automatic. Instinctive, the grip of a body that has made a decision the mind is not involved in yet. Zevran does not move. He looks out the window on his side at the city moving past, at the lit bridges and the water beneath them, and the particular way New York looks from a moving car at midnight, unreal in its enormity, familiar in its details. The kind of city that asks nothing personal from you and gives you everything impersonal in return. He looks at it and his jaw is a hard line, and there is something behind his eyes that is making very quiet, very significant adjustments to the way he understands the last 8 months of his life. He has always been the one who watches, who calculates, who waits for the full picture before committing to a response. He does not act until he is certain. He does not commit until the variables are accounted for. He sat in his window seat in first class for 41 minutes watching a baby scream for something none of them could name, and he noticed the direction of the pull, and he had a feeling he could not put math to, and he said nothing for 41 minutes because he was still calculating. He understands now what the calculation cost. Ias's grip tightens slightly, still asleep, still unconscious, and Zevran looks down at the baby's hand around his finger and closes his eyes for one brief second. When he opens them, Kairos is looking at him. She has been watching. She sees the thing in his face that is not managed and not calculated, the raw, unframed fact of a man who has just understood something he cannot understand. She sees it and she does not look away, and she does not soften it for him or harden it. She just sees it. Massachusetts, Kale says from the back. Both Kairos and Zevran look toward him. Have a house in Massachusetts, Kale says. Concord, outside the center. It's not a showroom. He pauses. The pause of a man describing something personal to people who have not seen it, which is unusual for him because Kale Virely does not typically describe personal things. I bought it 3 years ago, I've spent maybe 12 days in it, but I've kept it. He stops again, something in his voice that is not quite an admission but is standing right beside one. I don't know exactly why I kept it. Kairos looks at him through the dim back of the SUV. He looks back at her. I think I do now, he says. The city slides past the windows. The bridge lights streak across the glass. Ia sleeps, gripping Zevran's finger, wrapped in a blanket from Kale's bag in a car seat that has been carried for 6 weeks on the chance that it would be needed. And the SUV carries all of them forward into a midnight that is already becoming morning, towards something none of them have a name for yet but none of them are moving away from. The house in Concord is exactly what Kale said, not a showroom. It sits at the end of a gravel drive lined with old trees, maples, mostly, their branches still holding the last of the cold, just beginning to think about leaves. The house itself is wide and low and built from old stone and newer additions that someone integrated carefully, a house that has been added to over time by people who loved it in different eras and found ways to make it hold all of them. There is a porch light on, Kale texted ahead. The kind of person Kale Virely is made it inconceivable that the porch light would not be on. They arrive at 4 in the morning. The drive took longer than expected, not because of traffic, but because somewhere on the Mass Pike, Ias woke up and needed changing and feeding, and they pulled off at a rest stop that smelled like old coffee and floor cleaner and the specific democracy of a 24-hour highway bathroom. And all three brothers stood in a semicircle in the fluorescent-lit rest stop with the posture of men who are deeply out of their element and completely committed to being there anyway. Ronan held the diaper bag, Kairos worn one, which she had transferred to from the crossbody before they left the city. Kale stood by the changing table like a man learning a new job on the first day. Zevran held Ias's blanket and watched and did not pretend to know what he was doing. Kairos did not narrate, did not instruct, just moved through the task, efficient, practiced, completely unaware of how much she was teaching them simply by doing. Ias, changed and fed, looked at each of them in turn under the rest stop lighting, that same dark, assessing gaze, and then put both fists in his mouth and made a sound of profound personal satisfaction. They drove the rest of the way in a different kind of quiet. Now the house is lit from inside and Kale opens the front door and they move through it, through the wide entry with the hardwood floors that have been lived on, not preserved, through to a sitting room with a deep couch and a coffee table with a book spine up and open, like someone set it down mid-chapter and meant to come back, and Kairos stops in the doorway of the sitting room and stands there for a moment. She takes it in, books on the shelves, not decorative books, the kind with broken spines and notes in margins. A throw blanket on the couch arm that someone uses, a coffee mug on the kitchen counter that has been there long enough to leave a ring. Real things, evidence of habitation, evidence of a person and not a brand. Kale, she says. He stops at the kitchen threshold. This is a real house, she says. It is not a compliment exactly. It is more like recognition, like checking something off a list she did not know she was keeping. I know, he says, and the edge in his voice, the managed precision, is thinner here. The house does something to it, thins it down to something closer to the actual man underneath. Ronan goes directly to the kitchen. He is moving with the energy of someone who needs to do something physical and has identified the closest available task. He opens the refrigerator, stares into it. There's eggs, he announces in the tone of a man who has found water in a desert. There's actual eggs and there's butter and theirs. He holds up a carton. Oat milk, Kale. I have dietary considerations, Kale says flatly. You have oat milk. That is what I said. Kairos presses her mouth together against a smile. Zevran, who has been carrying Ia since they got out of the car, the baby transferred to him with zero ceremony by Kairos when she needed both hands to navigate the gravel drive in the dark in her sneakers, is now standing in the sitting room with Ias held against his chest, looking at the room with the expression of a man conducting a slow, thorough appraisal. Not of value, of suitability. Whether this space can hold what he is thinking about, whether its proportions are right for the specific future he is carefully, for the first time, allowing himself to think about. Ias is awake and quiet. He is looking at the room too. They are objectively doing the same thing, both of them taking the measure of a space they have never been in before, deciding how they feel about it. It's good, Zevran says, to know one specific. To the room, Kairos sits on the couch. The deep, real couch with the throw blanket on the arm. She sits and she lets the couch take her weight, really takes her weight. The kind of sinking that happens when your body has been carrying tension for so long that having it held by something external produces a physical release you were not expecting. She leans back, looks at the ceiling, old plaster painted white, a faint hairline cracked near the corner that has been there long enough to become part of the character. She stares at it. She is tired. Not the 8 months tired she described on the plane. This is a different tired. The tired that comes after something ends. After the long hold finally releases and the body gets the message that it can stop gripping and starts to let go. Ronan burns toast. The smoke alarm beeps one sharp, short burst and Ronan swears under his breath and fans it with a dish towel with the alarmed efficiency of a man who has never been less in control of a situation and is handling it. Kale appears in the kitchen doorway, looks at the blackened toast, looks at Ronan and says nothing. His expression says everything. Ronan looks back at him. It's fine, Ronan says. It is not fine. The eggs will be fine. The eggs are going to be fine because I'm going to make the eggs. You cannot make eggs at 4 in the morning in Massachusetts. Watch me. Kairos turns her head toward the kitchen and the sound of two grown men arguing about eggs at 4 in the morning in a house that smells like old books in real life, and she laughs. It comes out unexpected. Not a polite sound. A real laugh, low and surprised and brief, the laugh of someone who is not planning to laugh and cannot stop it. It lasts maybe 3 seconds. Then it settles back into the quiet of the sitting room, but the 3 seconds of it are in the air. They stay there. Ronan comes to the kitchen doorway and looks at her with an expression that is half surprised and half something so much larger than surprised that surprise doesn't cover it. Something like the feeling you get when you have been afraid something is permanently gone and you suddenly hear it in the next room. Zevran sits down in the armchair across from Kairos. He settles Ias in his lap, facing outward with his big hands holding the baby steady. Ias looks around the room with his usual seriousness, and then fixes his gaze on the overhead light with the focused absorption of a baby who has decided that ceiling lights are the most interesting development in recent history. Kale comes out of the kitchen with 2 mugs. He sets one on the table in front of Kairos. Tea. She looks at it. She has not told him she drinks tea. She does not ask how he knows. He sits down in the other chair. The room holds them. All 4 of them, and Ias, making quiet, contented noises at the ceiling light, held in the warm, imperfect space of a house that was kept without knowing why and is now beginning to understand the reason. Ronan appears from the kitchen with a plate. He has made something. It is unclear exactly what. He sets it on the coffee table with the modest confidence of a man presenting work he is not entirely sure about but is committed to. He sits on the floor beside the coffee table because the couch is Kairos and the chairs are taken, and Ronan, when he runs out of options, simply sits on the floor. He sits cross-legged, plate in front of him, and looks at the ceiling the same way Ias is looking at the ceiling. No one speaks for a while. The house is quiet in the way that real houses are quiet at 4 in the morning. The sound of the heat, the faint creak of old structure, the particular quality of silence in a room where people are present and accounted for, and have stopped trying to say everything. Ias makes a sound. A laugh, small, sudden, clear as anything, the bright, entirely genuine laugh of a baby who has found something funny in whatever private world 5-month-olds occupy when they are happy. His whole face reorganizes around it. His eyes crinkle. His fists pump in the air. He laughs at the ceiling, at Zevran's hands, at the room, at all of it, with the uncomplicated, overflowing joy of a child who is exactly where he is supposed to be and knows it in every cell of his body. The sound of it moves through the room like light moving through water. It gets into every corner. Kale looks at his son laughing, and something in his face, the last careful, managed layer of it, lets go. He does not cry. He is Kale. But his eyes do the thing that eyes do when they hold something they have no other place to put. And he lets them in this room with no audience that matters more than this one. Ronan picks up a piece of whatever he made and eats it. His eyes are bright and he is not trying to dim them. Zevran holds Ias steady as the baby laughs, and his thumbs make slow circles on the baby's sides, and his face is the most unguarded it has been in as long as any of them can remember. Kairos holds her tea. She watches Ias laugh at the ceiling, she breathes, and she lets herself be here in this room with these people. In this house at the end of a gravel drive that someone kept for a reason they didn't understand, and she does not manage it or frame it or decide in advance what it means. She just lets it be what it is, real, slow, awkward in all the ways real things are awkward, and completely, quietly worth it. Love is not about power. It is not about who has the most resources or who makes the most decisive moves or who never makes a mistake. It is about learning, unlearning. Walking back into a room where you were wrong and choosing to be different. Sitting on the floor when the chairs are taken. Keeping a car seat for 6 weeks on the chance that it would be needed. Holding a hand open in the air of an airplane cabin and keeping it there, choosing again and again and again. The ceiling light that Ias finds so fascinating flickers once, just once, a tiny wavering, and then holds steady. The baby stops laughing. He looks at the light with enormous seriousness, as if personally affronted by this development. Then he laughs again, and the house holds them all. If this story moved something in you, if you felt the pull of that plane cabin, the weight of those open hands, the sound of that laugh in the quiet house at 4 in the morning, then you already know why stories like this matter. Because they are not really about billionaires and flights in first-class cabins. They are about all of us, every person who waited to be chosen, every person who did not know how to show up and had to learn, every person who kept something just in case. Drop a comment right now and tell us which moment in this story hit you the hardest. Was it Ias reaching for Ronan's hand on the plane? Was it the car seat that Kale carried for 6 weeks? Or was it that laugh at 4 in the morning in a house that was waiting to understand its own purpose? Tell us below. And if you have not subscribed yet, do it right now and turn on your notifications. Every week there is a new story on this channel, a new set of people finding their way back to each other, a new truth sitting in the quiet of a room that finally has everyone in it. You do not want to miss a single one. Share this story with someone who needs to hear it today, and we will see you in the next one.